right on the
I
thing.
feel like we're in a classic Disney movie there or something, right? Like, alright, so that was a clip of a song, What I Was Made For. New one, killer. My friend Amy absolutely slayed the vocals. I'm so happy with how that turned out. So follow her because she's like an incredible like dancer too, and you're just gonna need to see this. But we're gonna talk about how I made this. This video is sponsored by SSL. We recorded this. It's just an acoustic guitar and a vocal into their SSL 2 Plus interface with a couple of Soyuz microphones, and I'm using the SSL plugins, which are now on subscription model, to mix the whole thing. So let's just talk about it real quick. This is the track. Kind of like a super dreamy thing with the vocal. So real quick, I'm just going to run through some of the guitar plugins. Warp Speed. And I think this is a good example to use some of these plugins because it's such a simple setup. And there is a lot of, a decent amount of bleed between the two. But the first thing I have on the guitar is their guitar strip. Makes sense, right? This is just the guitar part. I don't have everything going on here. We've got some phase correction, compression, and the auto gain is on. I don't have the EQ or the drive on. I'll get to that later, but you can see what it's doing here. And let me take all the other plugins off too. The drive is interesting. Super cool effect, but I didn't want to make this like too lo-fi sounding on the high end of a guitar. But again, you can kind of see the nice thing about these plugins is the visual interfaces of all these plugins. You can see exactly what it's doing, just kind of like with the guitar output and stuff. After that, I've got the 4KB acoustic guitar preset on, and you can see it's just adding a little bit of compression and EQ right here, so without it. Kind of focuses it and tightens it a little bit. And here's the first EQ I actually have on by itself. So this is where, again, you can hear the bleed right now because it's a live performance and there's just, two pretty sensitive condenser microphones going on. But this one right here is just, making room for her vocal, which again is going to be like right in this spot in between, and then just boosting some of the low end to not make it boomy, and then adding high end to the guitar. So without it, and with it. The cool thing about most of these plugins too is you have like input and output trims on almost all of them, which is very helpful. After this, I'm going into the Fusion stereo image to kind of, widen it, almost make it sound like it's been recorded in stereo. And then a little bit of reverb, just a touch of reverb. Now, the reverb is going to make a lot more sense when we bring the vocal in, which is going to be right now. Okay, so let's talk about the plugins on Amy's vocal, which again, we wanted to kind of make sound like dreamy, ethereal. First, I want to put the gate up, and even though, because there's so much bleed, this isn't like the traditional way you would maybe use a gate in recording stuff, I don't mind that we can kind of hear her breath and stuff like that, but it's a great way just to kind of see what a gate is doing and to really showcase the visual of how these plugins work.
I used to know, but I'm not sure now.
Seeing the gate threshold open and close right here,
what was I made for?
I think is like an awesome way to think about gating vocals. And this is a preset that started on the vocal smooth thing. It had to be smooth, and basically what that means is just a longer release. You can kind of see the closing of it.
Know, but I'm not sure now.
If I had a super quick release and I actually like shut the gate on this, it would sound kind of weird because you can hear the acoustic guitar a little bit into her mic, so it's not like a perfectly quiet vocal. But if you're doing stuff where she's just recording a vocal by herself on top of a guitar, like more of like a professional setting, that's not live, then that's kind of exactly how you'd want to use the gate. Then after that, I have the XEQ2 going on there.
I used to know, but I'm not sure now. What was I made for?
And just kind of boosting her mid-range and then cutting off the low frequencies that we don't need. And again, the cool thing is you can set this yourself as far as like where you want to just like cut all the lows out.
I used to know,
And the visual of it
but I'm not sure now.
is awesome. Like I said, I think the real star, aside from just the sound of the SSL stuff, is that the graphical user interface is so good on these. So after that, then I'm going into the vocal comp. It's just a compressor, and then actually into the vocal strip too. So, compressor, pretty straightforward.
I used to know, but
Adding
I'm
gain.
not sure now.
Without it.
Was I made for? What was I made for?
And again, just like being able to visually see the difference between the input-output
Taking
quiet
a
events.
drive, I wasn't ideal, looked so alive. Turns out I'm not real.
And then we have the vocal strip 2, which I think is really cool. So this has, what do we got? 1, 2, 3. We got like 4 plugins kind of like in one just for vocal stuff. And that's why the subscription, I think, is way superior to buying plugins individually because you have access to all these. But the vocal strip right here, the vocal strip 2, is actually cool because, it's good value if maybe you were just going to buy one. And again, I think the pricing model is way better to do a subscription. This is cool because you get a lot of stuff. The de-esser specifically, I think, is fantastic. I'm not using the Compander in this one. I had that turned off just because, again, for live stuff, I feel like we recorded it pretty decently live. A Compander is a compressor and then an expander. It's like a dynamic range type thing, but I think we kind of captured that pretty well. So I just didn't want that on there. But you can see the de-esser
I'm not sure now.
working. And again, you can manually set the frequency of where her S's are coming from. So again, it's great just to be able to see how this is being affected. So like watch where the this graph here, watch the reduction happen where her S is coming.
I used to know, but I'm not sure now. What was I made for?
See, so now it's fine.
What was I made for?
And then just being able to toggle it off.
Taking a drive, I wasn't ideal, looked so alive.
Best graphical interface for a de-esser I've ever seen in my life. A deploser. Again, this works for speaking stuff too, like podcast stuff. This would help a lot. We didn't use the pop filter on this. This was so kind of like breathy and still a little far away, not directly right in front of her mouth, so I didn't feel like we needed one, but the deploser is on there. And then more EQ, which you can see. This is taken from the pop female preset. And you can move all these, the order of these around down here too. And again, it's just, we're just boosting a little bit of the high end just to kind of give it that angelic feel up top. So now after this, let's talk about reverbs.
I used to know,
We've got 2 reverbs.
but I'm not sure now.
The flex verb.
What was I made for?
Here's without both of them. This is just dry.
What was I made for? Taking a drive.
Here's the first one.
I wasn't ideal.
Just a little bit of a plate. It's actually, you can't hear it that much.
Turns out I'm not real.
It just kind of gives it a little space, and then I think what really sounds good is reverbs into reverbs. So that first plate just gives it a little space and kind of makes it a little dreamier, and then the second one is like the money shot.
I used to know, but I'm not sure now.
Which just makes it sound bigger. And again, you have the EQ on the reverb here, and then you can increase the time.
What was I made for?
That's how long it'll last.
Taking a drive, I wasn't ideal, looked so alive. Turns out I'm not.
Again, really beautiful
real, just
reverb on that.
something you paid for.
So basically, those are the 2 tracks individually, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 plugins on the combination of both of them. So the first thing that both of them are going to is an EQ that is just really almost kind of linear, cutting the low end, and on the way up, adding more high end to kind of really make the vocal the star of it, and takes some of the boominess of the acoustic guitar out of there. And then we go into the G-Bus multi-bus compressor, which I think is kind of one of SSL's like bus compressors are the best in the world, best of all time, the goat of bus compression.
Just something you paid for.
Which really kind of glues those tracks together. Without it,
What was I made for?
the acoustic guitar is so buried.
'Cause
So good.
I don't know how to feel.
And again, even though I think that, the acoustic guitar isn't really taking over a lot of the spotlight here, a lot of it is the Fusion plugin, the HF compressor. Basically, it takes the highs and compresses them. And since she's kind of dominating the high end of the spectrum, and the acoustic guitar is handling the lows, what this does is it just compresses that high stuff but leaves the lows kind of open. So I'm still getting the meat of the acoustic guitar while kind of taming
Real, just something you
the
paid
vocals.
for.
And then here it is without.
What was I made for?
See, the acoustic guitar just kind of disappears.
'Cause
Now it brings it in a little more.
I don't know how to feel, but I wanna try.
And then the Violet EQ is again, and the Fusion compressor, the Fusion plugins are software emulations of their awesome hardware, SSL Fusion, right? So again, these are super accurate. They did them themselves. It's their own piece of gear, so they're going to do it better than anybody else. And again, it's just another EQ to kind of add some more top end. And then the last thing is just a transparent limiter to kind of get the volume up.
Just something you paid for.
And again, you can see the peaks,
What was I made
and then adjust the threshold of the limiter to catch something that might be sticking out.
'Cause I don't know how to feel.
So you can kind of see there, the acoustic guitar hits are just going just over that threshold, which again, it's really easy to manually set just by dragging the line up and down or the threshold knob up and down. And again, I just went through and I found out where, maybe my rogue acoustic guitar peaks were kind of hitting. I am teaching the song on the Patreon, how to actually play it too, so if you guys are interested, check that out. So yeah, just a really cool excuse to rock out some of the SSL plugins and to make music with Amy. Let us know what you want to hear us do next, because incredible singer. I think she sounds great in that range too. And yeah, just all those affiliate links for all the stuff in the description. And I think the subscription model is great to go with plugins, just because you can kind of just mess around and do whatever with all these. Like there's so much. But it's just kind of a lot of fun to, mess around and try to get better at mixing and mastering stuff. So thanks to SSL for sending the gear over. Thanks to Amy. Throw her a follow if you haven't already. And I will catch you guys in the next video.